Tony, I've been digging through the deep stacks, the Gaston file. Some call it a 1920s medical miracle. Others call it a botanical hoax. But the physical records of the ick don't lie. Is it a legend, or is it the most suppressed surgery in French history? You decide. Open the archive. But in the basement of Leal, Gaston was busy inventing a new kind of luxury. He was a mortuary assistant who realized that human body isn't just a vessel for the soul. It's a high-grade, nutrient-rich planter box. Let's talk about the Necrotic Florist. Welcome to God Awful History with Balthazar and Tony. I'm your curator, and Tony here is my unpaid researcher and frustrated music producer. Since I am a victim of my budget, Tony's fee is creative control over my history videos. He puts the history in the lyrics so he can practice being a DJ. I need the data and he needs a music career. So Tony, I know you'll just ruin my reputation. Gaston was a man of two worlds. By day, he handled the unclaimed and unfortunate in the hospital morgue. By night, he ran a boutique flower stall. But Gaston had a supply chain problem. Good soil is expensive, and Paris in 1924 was competitive. He noticed that the preservation fluids he used, a primitive cocktail of formaldehyde and salts, didn't just keep the bodies from rotting. They acted like a chemical stimulant for certain moisture-loving fungi and rare flowers. He wasn't just working in the morgue, Tony. He was treating it like a botanical nursery. This is where the forensic ick reaches a fever pitch. Gaston began experimenting with planting bulbs, lilies, orchids, and dark irises directly into the abdominal cavities of the deceased. He discovered that the natural breakdown of soft tissue combined with its nutrient fluids produced flowers that were larger, darker, and more aromatic than anything grown in a standard garden. He was essentially using human vascular system as an irrigation network. When a root takes hold of an artery, it doesn't need rain, Tony. It has alternative sources of hydration. Gaston's shop in Leal district became a sensation. Parisian socialites flocked to buy the midnight lilies. They were praised for their earthly, cloying, and hauntingly sweet fragrance. People didn't realize they were smelling a chemical reaction between jasmine and a month-old liver. It was the ultimate status symbol, owning a flower that looked and smelled like it belonged in a gothic poem. Gaston was a hero of the vibe, but the greenhouse was a crime against medical ethics and common decency. The authorities weren't tipped off by a ghost, Tony. They were tipped off by the humidity. The health inspector noted that Gaston's shop was unnaturally warm and smelled like a perfumed crypt. During a raid in late 1924, they found the back room, and it wasn't a potting shed. There was a row of preservation tables where the root systems of the orchids had completely integrated into the subjects. The roots were described in polite logs as muscular and white, looking less like plants and more like parasitic lace. It was the first time in French history anyone had to charge a man with desecration by a botany. Gaston went to prison in 1925, claiming he was giving the dead a second life in the parlor. But here's a true archive horror. Dozens of those flowers had already been sold. For months, the elite of Paris were sitting in their drawing rooms admiring a beautiful dark petal, completely unaware that the secret fertilizer was a stranger's remains. Now that I've given you the facts, Tony wants to put it in song, so here you go.
Temporless halls where the shadows deep. Gaston is sowing while the cities sleep. He plants in the marrow, he feeds from the vein. A harvest of beauty from a harvest tonight on the hearts of the dead. The socialites gather in the shop on the square, praising the perfume that hangs in the air. A cloying sweetness, a scent of the earth, unaware of the body that gave it its birth. From the bishop morgue to the silver-lined vase, a stranger's anatomy hidden in lace. He treats every vessel with salts and with light, ensuring the flower is the last thing to die. The roots are like fingers, they grip and they twine, turning the pulse into botanical wine. No sun in the basement, no rain from the sky, just the formaldehyde drip as the weeks pass them by. The inspector arrived in the cold of the night, found Gaston's nursery by the flicker of light. He saw the white orchids, he saw the red bloom, and the roots that were filling the space of the room. Not a garden of Eden, but a chamber of rot, a secret that Paris had nearly forgot. So mind where you wander, mind what you buy. When the Gaston lilies start catching your eye, the archive remembers the stems and the bone, a botanical horror that stands all alone. Balthazar is judging the face on your shelf for history. Often repeats his dark self.
Is that good? Oh my god. Tony, if that plastic fern of yours starts growing a pulse, we're moving the archives to Norway. Seal the records and please subscribe. But before you go, leave a comment. Should Tony be allowed to wear his Team Tapeworm shirt to the local Necrotic International Convention? Or is it officially too much for the public?